relative risk is, like, here's an example. If I tell some people there's a 30% chance of rain today, that would make some people be like, maybe I'll take an umbrella. I don't want to take the risk. Maybe like they'll have beautiful hair that day that they don't want to have ruined. Like, there'll be reasons. Some person might choose to take an umbrella with them just to be on the safe side. And another person might think 30% chance of rain, can't be bothered to carry around an umbrella with me all day, I'm not going to take one. So the same amount of risk can mean different things for different people. And what this person had been told was that because they have a history of fibroids, there is a raised chance of them losing over 500 mils of blood in giving birth. Now, a normal amount of blood loss is considered 200 to 400 mils of blood. So they're like, saying 100 mils more, and we would like to potentially give you a transfusion and just, be on the lookout for needing to give you a transfusion pretty quick, or medication to stop you from hemorrhaging, I suppose. So they've said that she's at a raised risk, but they haven't said how much. What is the raised risk? They haven't told her what the risk was to begin with, even if there was no fibroids. And then they haven't told her what the relative difference is to that number. So I went digging around because that's what I like to do. And I found 2 papers. One which only had a sample size of like 13 women or 9 women or something. So we're going to just chuck that out, because the reference range that they gave was more cautious than the second one. The second one that I found compared something like 50 different studies of all of the different people across those studies. So it was a much larger sample size. I hate to say that within me complaining about someone not giving specific numbers, I can't remember off the top of my head how many more people, but because it was 50 studies or more, it was a lot more people. I'm hoping thousands, basically. And they said, oh God, can I remember this off the top of my head? I think it went from a 3% risk it went from a 3% risk of someone hemorrhaging to a 10% risk of them hemorrhaging. So you could say that you're at triple the risk without giving anyone the numbers, and freak them the fuck out. Or you could say you're going to go from a 2% risk to a 10% risk of hemorrhaging. Or you could say you're going to go from a 98% chance of something not happening to a 90% chance of it happening. Hang on. Did I say 3 and then 10? I did. Okay, so 97% chance of it not happening to a 90% chance of it not happening. Which, if someone said to me, I'm going to equate it to rain, which is just terrible. There's a 90% chance of it not raining. I'm obviously not going to take an umbrella. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about potentially life-changing amounts of blood loss. So, ultimately, some people would be like, well, I don't want to take any life-changing amount of risk of blood loss. And some people would be like, I'm okay. I would rather proceed as normal until something happens. I'm in I would rather proceed as normal in an optimistic fashion and see what happens. And then the way that I tend to do my birth plan was if that thing is going to happen, are we in a space where we can fix it? Do I have the time allowance to get from A to B to fix it? Was another question that I would ask myself. And that would really change how much risk I was willing to take. In my second birth, I had meconium in my fluids when they went, my waters when they broke. And that can be a sign the baby's distressed, but it might just be a sign that I had held in the pregnancy. 42 weeks, which it was. So, and the baby wasn't actually in distress. And I opted for constant monitoring so that I could prove to everybody that they weren't in distress, and I could feel reassured that they weren't in distress through the labour. So I chose in the end to not give birth at home so that we could do that, and ended up having a perfectly natural birth in hospital. But I think that would have been very hard to achieve if I hadn't been so switched on in the first part of their labour happening, because I think we had like 4 to 6 different medical people come in and put pressure on me to have an induced labour and a managed contractions through Pitocin. I just completely disagreed with the need for that. So we didn't do that. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I've been thinking about, is the concept of relative risk. And I thought that was really interesting. Statistics that I've found, even though I'll probably quote you to them slightly off, but I'll put them in the comments. Right, I think it's time I check to see if any of this is recording. For needing to give you a transfusion pretty quick, or medication to stop you from hemorrhaging, I suppose. So they've said that she's at a raised risk, but they haven't said how much. They haven't told her what the risk was to begin with, even if there was no fibroids. And then they haven't told her what the relative difference is